This morning, it just may be the most far left agenda in our country's history on a presidential ticket.
Because the Democratic ticket is now set. Governor Tim Walz's record in Minnesota includes everything from tax-funded health care for illegals to so-called gender-affirming care for minors, just to name a few, as we've been doing this morning.
Joining us now for his first TV interview, his reaction to this ticket that he's fighting against them to have the right to go to the White House and become the 47th president. Let's welcome the 45th president of the United States, GOP presidential nominee, President Donald Trump. Mr. President, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So
thank you.
Your reaction to Governor Tim Walz joining Kamala Harris to go against you and J.D. Vance?
I would say my reaction is I can't believe it. I never thought this was going to be the one that was picked. I know him a little bit. I helped him very much during the riots because his house was surrounded by people that were waving an American flag. Doesn't sound like very bad people. And he called me and he was very concerned, very, very concerned that it was going to get out of control. They only had one guard. I guess it was at the mansion or at his house in some form. And he called me. I said, what do you want me to do about it? I was in the White House. He said, if you would put out the word that I'm a good person. And I did. I put out the word. I said, he's a good person. I hope everything's good. And everybody put down their flags and took their flags with them. But they took their American flags and their MAGA flags and they left. It was thousands of people. And that was the first time I said, wow, that's very interesting. And he called me back and he thanked me very much. That's my only thing I ever had to do with him. He's a very, very liberal man, and he's a shocking pick, and I'm thrilled. I could not be more thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, when they selected him, it's really a gift for you because this election is all about the issues, and all of y'all have records. You've been the president. We know where the economy stood. We know what your record is. We know what Kamala Harris's record is, and we know what his record is, and they are extremely progressive. Talk about how you're going to handle this on the campaign trail. Will you just really hone in on how they voted in the past?
Well, I am. I'm going to be doing that. What he wants. If you look at his record with no walls, no security, let everybody in, he's worse than they are. You know, nobody knew how radical left she was, but he's a smarter version of her. If you want to know the truth, he's probably about the same as Bernie Sanders. He's probably more so than Bernie Sanders. She is more so than Bernie Sanders. That's got to be your guide, Bernie Sanders, and that's not a great guide. But there's never been a ticket like this. This is a ticket that would want this country to go communist immediately, if not sooner. We want no security. We want no anything. He's very heavy into transgender. Anything transgender he thinks is great. And he's not where the country is on anything.
Mr. President,
this is a shocking. Let me tell you, this is a shocking pick, and I think it's very insulting to Jewish people, and I think it's very insulting to people that want security. I think it's very insulting to anything having to do with making America great again.
Mr. President, is it true that your team thought for sure that it was going to be Josh Shapiro? Because there was one reporter who was at a J.D. Vance event yesterday, and there were some flyers printed up talking about how J.D. Vance, rather about how Mr. Shapiro was a fraud and corrupt and a lying con man and stuff like that. So it sounds like you were ready to take on him.
That sounds like what you would say.
Well, look, I'm no big fan of Josh Shapiro. I know the state very well. I think we're leading pretty good in that state, but I would have said it would have been a better choice. I would have said others would have better choice. And interesting, just about all of them, except this one, is better than her. She is not nearly as good as the people she was looking at. I know them all in one form or another. And in fact, there was a poll done and there were some studies done. She's the worst of the group, and she's the one that's leading it. Look at this decision. This is a really bad decision for the country. You know, ultimately, I want the country to have good decisions because ultimately what we want is for the country to do well. The country can't do well with these two people. They're very similar, and you would have thought she would have reached out and got somebody that's got some different, because her record on security is horrible. She was a border czar, which she doesn't admit it now. You know, the only thing they have going is the media will play off all of the bad things that happened during her term. She was so bad that 5 weeks ago, they wanted to remove her because she was unthinkable to be president. They were going to go with anyone. And then they were afraid that they would offend people if they did that. And all of a sudden, inch by inch, and then she ends up taking over. Now the same press that thought she was the worst vice president in history, which is true, going along with the worst president in history. And he went down after the debate, and there was nothing much they could do it. They tried to come back. Then they brought her in, and everybody said, it'll never be her. She's so bad. She's incompetent. And after they studied it a little bit, they realized it's not going to be so easy to do. So they say, well, look, the press is going to do whatever we want because the press is a rigged deal. The press is the media, outside of you people, of course, but the media is so they're trying to build her up to the next Margaret Thatcher liberal version, and I don't believe it's going to happen. I hear she's hasn't taken one interview. She would never do an interview like this. That I can guarantee with any network. She doesn't do interviews because she can't answer questions. I don't know how she debates. I heard she's sort of a nasty person, but not a good good debater. But we'll see, because we'll be debating her, I guess, in the pretty near future. It's going to be announced fairly soon, but we'll be debating her. I'd like to see it on Fox, by the way. I would like to see it. My preference would be Fox, but we have to debate.
Do you have an announcement, Mr. Are you working stuff out behind the scenes? Because we haven't heard about it yet.
No, but I can tell you every network loves me very much right now. They love me very much. I've never been so loved by CBS and by ABC fake news. And by NBC. No, they're all in love with me now, so that, I say yes, because it's up to me, obviously, also.
But on the debate,
the most important thing is we get debate. I think debates are very important, and I think she'll be exposed just like Biden was exposed. Nobody knew Biden was that bad, and then he was exposed during the debate, and they tried to have a series of comebacks after that, and they didn't work out too well, and they viciously overthrew him. I mean, he was overthrown in it, using every trick in the book. They overthrew him. It was pretty amazing, actually, to watch.
I want to come back to the debate. Just to close this up, you're in litigation with George Stephanopoulos on ABC. So there's right, and the judge says, yeah, this is good. The suit's going to go forward. So how could you go on ABC, especially if he's going to be one of the moderators?
Well, you could use that as an excuse. I could use that. I've said that. Is there a conflict? And, there might be George Slopadopoulos, and he's got problems, and, they've got problems. But if they're going to have I guess David Muir is going to be the host in that case. You have all the hosts are pretty much named, and you have Brett and Martha, and they're great. And I'd love to see it on Fox, but it takes two to tango.
Well, maybe you get two. Maybe you get two debates.
She doesn't want to debate. Look, she doesn't want to debate. She wants to say, I don't want to debate, but I do want to debate. When it came to Biden, I accepted everything. I accepted Jake Tapper. I accepted everything because he didn't want to debate. After I accepted everything, the only thing I said, let's stand up. They wanted to sit down at a desk. I said, that's not going to look so great. So I said, but I accepted everything. And pretty much that's the way I do it right now because I want to debate her. I think it's important for the country that we debate. Now, where it is, I'm all for Fox. I'd like to see it on Fox. I think Fox would do a really good job, but two people have to agree.
All right, Mr. President, let's talk about some of the issues. Mr. Waltz, Governor Waltz, said this about you, that you don't understand kitchen table issues. Listen.
Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club in Mar-A-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends.
Mr. President, what's your response to that?
Well, I think it's just the opposite. I think if you see the vote, those people are all voting for me, the people that he's talking about with the kitchen table. And I was not always sitting at Mar-a-Lago either, but I was sitting at lots of other places. And built an unbelievable business, one of the greatest businesses. I built a business that is phenomenal. That's been really determined now how good it is. And, I could have a very simple life and a very good life and continue to do what I love. I love business and I love creating jobs, and that's what we're doing. We'll be creating jobs at a level that you've never seen before. If you look at our administration, the most successful administration from the economy standpoint there ever was. There's never been any administration that was even close, numbers-wise. And by the way, they had inflation, the level which our country probably has never seen. You know, they say you go back 72 years. Well, I think we probably never have seen inflation like that, and it's killing the same people that he's talking about. It's killing. Inflation has destroyed their administration, and they have no idea what to do about it. It's getting worse, and you had a crash the other day of over 1,000 points. It's a very bad situation that we're going in. We could end up in a depression if these people are reelected.
So let's talk about anti-Semitism. Van Jones had an interesting thing to say about anti-Semitism. He says this on CNN. It's just because he's a moderate. They're talking about Shapiro not getting the job. Or is there some anti-Jewish bias there? He goes, you also have anti-Semitism that's gotten marbled into this party. You can't be for the Palestinians without being anti-Jewish bigot. But there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there, and there's some disquiet now. And there has to be how much that just happened. How much is this pick, I guess he's saying, caving into the anti-Jewishness, anti-Semitism that's marbled into the party? Do you think that's marbled into the party? Because if I could bring in something else that's new, CNN did a poll, and they asked New York Jewish New Yorkers, if the election was today, who you'd vote for. And for the first time maybe ever since Ronald Reagan, you have a 1-point lead over Kamala Harris among Jewish voters in New York. Your reaction to Van Jones and that poll?
Well, we're going to try and win New York, and that hasn't been done for many, many decades, as you know, but we're trying to win New York, and we're very close to doing it. And probably that's another reason I was somewhat surprised. I think that any Jewish person who votes for a Democrat, or in this case, these people, but who votes for a Democrat, should have their head examined. They are so bad. If you look, they are so bad to Jewish people, what they've done and the way they talk and their policy and everything else, far beyond just what happened, because everyone thought it was going to be Shapiro. It turned out not to be Shapiro. I have very little doubt that it was, not for the reason we're talking about. It was because of the fact that he's Jewish and they think they're going to offend somebody else. And you wouldn't feel very comfortable if you're in Israel right now with this team. This is the worst team ever assembled for a Jewish person or for Israel, either one. The worst team ever assembled. This is a team that will not be there. And I think I'm going to get a tremendous amount of Jewish votes. I think I was doing fine there, but I think it's a big difference. Traditionally, Jewish people vote for Democrats, but we won last time. We won Miami. We won areas that nobody's ever won before with Jewish people. But when he didn't pick Shapiro, and I don't think Shapiro was the second best person or the third. I think there were other people better than him. I know them all. And, but I was shocked when it came down to the final two that he didn't pick Shapiro. I was very surprised.
Mr. President, here's another soundbite of the current vice president talking about, on her watch with Joe Biden, things are just absolutely great, right? Watch.
In Pennsylvania, we fight for a future with affordable housing, affordable health care, affordable child care, paid leave. We fight for a future where we bring down prices that are still too high and lower the cost of living for America's families.
Okay, so there, she is co-pilot to Joe Biden. So while inflation and prices have been through the roof during their administration, now she's trying to put on a happy face about how we're going to turn it all around. Mr. President, I'm sure you've seen over the last week or so, her team has been leaking to the New York Times. All those things we used to stand for, we're not for them anymore because we've adopted all new policies. That's probably one of the reasons why she has not appeared on television. And so she's trying to appear more moderate to appeal to people in the middle, and she's getting away with it. The honeymoon for Kamala Harris, it must drive you crazy because it's still going on.
It does, and there's only one thing, because she's just talking about Pennsylvania. No fracking. That means your energy prices are going to go through the roof, but that means Pennsylvania is going to lose 500,000 jobs. More important than the 500,000 jobs, they're going to lose tremendous streams of money. She wants no fracking, and she wants no fracking. She's trying to say now that she wants, she's gone through every single thing that was a horror show, and she disavows it now. She disavows the no fracking. If she does no fracking, and she will 100% do it. One thing I've learned about politicians, and you people knew it maybe before me, but I've known it for a long time, their first thought is the thought that they end up doing. She's for no fracking. She's for defund the police. She was the original defunder of the police. She was the original no cash bail, cashless bail, which has caused havoc. And look at how she's destroyed San Francisco. She started it out as the DA in San Francisco with policies that were so bad. It's a crime-ridden place. It went to the greatest city in America. It's a crime-ridden place right now. It's not livable. You can't even live there. And then she went to Attorney General. She's destroyed California. Her and Gavin Newsom have absolutely destroyed California. And what a shame. What a beautiful place it was. But it's not beautiful anymore. She cannot get away, because if she does this to America, every one of us are going to either be leaving or we're going to be living like dogs. Our whole country, our whole system is going to collapse. Even the talk about her has driven the stock market down.
Yeah.
When the stock market goes down, when you see it go down, that's because she gets a decent poll number. She gets bounces at a poll, the market goes down. The stock market will collapse like in 1929 if they're elected.
We know people are pulling a lot of their money out. If you looked at your 401k on Monday, you were in tears. You put on social media, Trump cash versus Kamala crash. And analysts are warning, even though there was a turnaround yesterday, the rebound doesn't mean the market meltdown is over. And when we go out to these diners, Mr. President, this is the number one issue: the economy, inflation, how it's affecting us. People can't retire right now because they're losing their money. The other issue is the border. And you have Tim Walz, who said that if you build this wall that's 25 feet, he wants a ladder factory where he sells ladders or gives ladders to the illegal immigrants that are 30 feet so they can climb the wall. He wants to pay for illegals' health care, just like Kamala Harris does, their tuition, and give them driver's license. He actually signed that into legislation in his state. And he supports to make Minnesota a sanctuary state. So talk about, it is now, talk about the economy, what you're going to do for the economy, and what you're going to do for the border.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to drill, baby, drill. And then number two, and I can do lots of things on the first day. It's not one thing or two things or four things. We're going to do lots of things on the first day. But we're going to close up the border. We're going to let people come in, but they have to come in legally. I built 571 miles of wall. We built a lot, much more than I said I was going to build. I was then going to add 200. We were 200 miles. We were 300. Literally, we were just right there. We could have had another 200, almost 300 miles of wall, and they decided not to put it up. I had it made,
paid for it.
and they sold it. Brian, they sold it for nothing. They sold it for 5% of the cost. It's very expensive. That wall is exactly what Border Patrol wanted. Wasn't my preference. I had a different wall. I had the most gorgeous wall you've ever seen, but they had to have steel, concrete, and rebar. And that's what it is. Inside that steel is concrete. Inside that is rebar. They needed a certain wall, high tech. It's very high tech. It's all wired for cameras, for everything. I put it up. They sold it for 5% of the cost of building it. And all they had to do is flip it. All they had to do is, it was all in place. We would have had 200 miles additionally in. The wall would have been unbelievable. And by the way, walls work. You've heard me say two things work. Everything's obsolete, but two things work: walls and wheels. They'll never change. Walls and wheels. Everything else is obsolete.
Running for vice president now.
Mr. President, we know you dodged an assassination attempt, and we still look at the footage and can't believe, and we're so thankful. The whole country is, even if they're voting for you or not. But then there's this story about Asif Merchant. He's 46 years old. He's in New York City. He's got Pakistani family and a Tehran family. It looks like he was trying to meet with a hitman. Thankfully, the FBI had infiltrated to assassinate you. Your thoughts about this devious plot?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm in a very dangerous business. Being president is a dangerous thing. And And especially when you're an active president, when you're somebody that wants to make our country secure, when you want to build a strong military. I rebuilt our entire military. I mean, we gave a lot of it away to Afghanistan, which is like shocking. That was, by the way, the Afghanistan, when we showed that gross incompetence in Afghanistan, I was getting out, but we were getting out with tremendous dignity and strength. We were the boss. We were going to keep Bagram. If you remember, we were going to keep Bagram because it's literally 1 hour from where China makes its nuclear weapons. They gave Bagram, and China has now assumed control of Bagram, and nobody wants to tell you that. We were going to keep Bagram. But the Afghanistan move was so bad. I think it was the lowest point in the history of our country. It was an embarrassment, the worst time in the history of our country in terms of that. And we gave that up. It was like the most horrible thing. And that gave Putin the feeling that, wow, these people are incompetent. I can go into Ukraine. And frankly, as you know, under me, Iran was broke. There was no Hamas threat. There was no Hezbollah
and Mr.
threat.
President, also, Kamala Harris was the last one in the room when Joe Biden signed off on that. Meanwhile, one of your favorite people, Lawrence Jones, is live in Sturgis. Lawrence, take it away.
Good.
You have
Thank
some
you.
people that have some questions for you.
I love that.
Mr. President, how you doing,
Lawrence?
Mr. President? We're live from
I'm doing
Sturgis.
good.
Say hello to so the people have some questions for you, Mr. President. I want to bring
Thank
in
you.
Brett. He was talking about he has his daughter, his grandchildren now living with him, and he says you're concerned about the economy. What is your question for the former president?
So, Mr. President, I appreciate you giving our time here. One of
Thank
the
you.
big concerns is what are you going to do about bringing down the rent and things like that in the economy? Because out of 8 children that I'm a father and a stepfather to, 5 of them are struggling, and I'm giving them part of my income on a regular basis. How are you going to make the economy not just the the food and electricity, but bring down the rent prices, the housing prices, so that these kids can survive without their parents' help?
Such a good question,
You're
Mr.
right.
President.
You're right. I hear it very well. And I tell you, first of all, I love the people that you're with. I know that I must have at least 99, perhaps 100% of all of them. And I think they're incredible. We are going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to bring down the cost of energy. Energy is what caused the worst inflation, I think, in the history of our country. Food prices are up 50%, sometimes more. You look at bacon. Bacon is quadrupled. You can't order bacon. You can't order anything. We're living horribly. We have the worst inflation we've probably ever had in our country, and it started because of energy. We're going to drill, baby, drill, and then we're going to have China and all of these countries that were treating us good when I was there toward that. I mean, it took me a long time to get them to behave properly. All of these countries are going to, again, stop. Like 4 years ago, I could ask you, you were in great shape. You had low energy costs. You had low food costs. Everything was good. You could buy a house. You had low interest rates, 2% interest rates. You had gasoline at $1.87. Now it's $5. And by the way, going up very substantially. But you had gasoline at $1.87 a gallon. Nobody talks about that anymore. Nobody even can believe it's going to happen. It's going to happen again. We've got to get the energy prices down, and everything else is going to be tumbling down with it, the prices, because what Biden has done to the economy is so horrible, and what he's done to inflation in our country is just very destructive.
Mr. President, it's the perfect segue. It's the perfect transition, Mr. President, because I met Linda at the airport yesterday, and when I talked to her and I said, what is the #1 concern? She's concerned about Kamala Harris and her energy policy. What is your question for the former president?
Mr. President, what can we do to achieve a permanent long-term energy solution to keep us energy independent?
Such a great question. Mr. President?
It's a great question. It's such an important question. And look, we're run by people that are not smart people, okay? Not smart people. We have more liquid gold, you've heard me say this a million times, under our feet than any other country, Russia, Saudi Arabia, you can add them all up. We have more than anybody. We were energy independent 4 years ago, and now we're begging Venezuela for oil. Venezuela, they don't even have oil. They have tar. You have to take tar, and you have to refine it. It's a terrible process. We have the best, the most beautiful, the best, highest quality oil under our feet. Texas and numerous other places. We have the best stuff. We don't use it because Biden does. He talks about the environment. You know, it's amazing. They talk about the environment, and yet we refine the Venezuelan tar. Okay, we refine it, and it goes up into our air. It's done in Houston, the only plant that can do it. We are going to bring the energy costs down. Everything else is going to be tumbling, and we don't need energy from any other country. We have to fill up these strategic reserves again. It's down. It's the lowest number it's ever been. He's using the strategic reserves, which is meant for military, which is meant for war and very important things. He's using it to try and keep gasoline prices down, and we can't allow that to happen. We have to fill up the strategic. I was filling that up at levels that they've never seen before. We have to fill up the strategic reserves immediately. We can't let people use that to fill a car. We will have the energy prices to a point where they're as low or lower than they were 4 years ago. Yep. But remember, I had you down to $1.87 a gallon, and that was beautiful. They were good times. Thank you.
Mr. President, it was a good time. I drive a big truck, so I remember that. Got one last question for you. A lot of folks here talking about Social Security, and this gentleman has a question on that point.
Yeah, Mr. President, a lot of seniors, their only income is Social Security. Last year, they had adjustable income of 1.2%. Meanwhile, inflation was probably 7% or higher. How about making it mandatory, whatever inflation is, that would be the income for the Social Security instead of this 1.2% pathetic adjustment?
Mr. President?
I got it. It's a great question. We can do a lot of things to help the people. People on Social Security are being killed. And one of the things I'm doing is no tax for seniors on Social Security, and I'll get it done quickly. No tax for seniors on Social Security. And for all your waiters and waitresses and everybody else out there, drivers, we're not going to have any tax on tips. No tax on tips. Remember that. No tax on tips. But we're going to have no tax for seniors on Social Security. And they are ruining, they're going to destroy Social Security because millions of people are coming onto our country and they're putting them on Social Security. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on all of our things. They're destroying it. They are destroying Social Security. We're going to make, and remember, I was there for 4 years. I didn't raise the age. They wanted to raise the age. They wanted lots of things. I said, no way. We left Social Security the way it was. But now we're doing no tax for seniors. You deserve that. We have plenty of other things. I told you about liquid gold. Yeah. We have more than anybody else. We don't have to do that. We don't have to hurt people on Social Security. So we are going to do no tax for seniors on Social Security, and also no tax on tips for the waiters that are standing right next to you.
So, Mr. President, I'm going to send it back to the couch, but the people here are going to kill me if I don't ask you. They want to know, will President Trump be at the next Sturgis right here to be with the people?
Are you ready? I love Sturgis. I love it. I love it, and I love that state. And that state, we win by so much. The answer is absolutely yes. I will be there. Absolutely yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back to the couch.
That is exactly what they wanted to hear. Lawrence and Sturgis, very nicely done. And Mr. President, thank you very much for taking half an hour to chat with us today.
Well, thank you. It was great fun. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Welcome back. Well, we are in countdown mode. We are 94 days away from the presidential election. Former President Trump assesses the state of the race, and now his new opponent, Kamala Harris.
We're leading the election by a lot. We knocked out Joe Biden. He didn't do too well in the debate, but that sort of ended it. And then he went through a series of problems. And you know, they actually did it so interesting. It was actually a coup of a president, if you think of it. He's got 14 million votes. He campaigned for a year, and he ended up winning, and they threw him out. They said, either you get out now or we're going to get you out the hard way. They said, there's an easy way and there's a hard way, Joe, and you'll get out. And they got out and they put this woman in who's a failed candidate. You know, she failed. I mean, she was the first one out the last time. She never made it to Iowa. And now the media's taken over and they're trying to make her into Margaret Thatcher. But I don't think that's going to work.
Well, the pollster, Robert Cahaley, told me yesterday that while she doesn't change anything in terms of policy, it's the same policy, she has changed the enthusiasm factor. Democrats will come out for her. So how does Kamala Harris change the race for you?
Well, I think that there is more enthusiasm for her. How can you be enthusiastic? You know, how can you be enthusiastic about Joe Biden? Okay. I mean, how do you be? But I think she's actually worse. I think she's a horrible candidate because she wants open borders. She was a border czar. She tries to, deny that now, which is not working. And
she also says she's not against fracking. And she says she doesn't necessarily want to do Medicare for all anymore.
She wants everything bad. Everything bad. If you look,
well,
she wants the all-electric car. She wants everything bad. She wants men playing in women's sports. But think of the no fracking. She's going to destroy Pennsylvania. You'll destroy Pennsylvania and many other places, by the way. Your energy bills will double, triple, and quadruple. Oh, she's terrible. She's not respected in foreign countries. I mean, she's laughed at. Everybody can't believe that this is happening. Look,
she's polling better than Joe Biden.
She was sent to see Putin about not going into Ukraine. He would have never gone in with me. He went in 3 days later. This is what's happening. So, well, it's a little bit like a fighter, though. You have a fighter and he's winning, and then somebody else is getting punished and beaten. And they say, let's take that fighter out, let's put a new one. That's what they've done here. This was a coup to Joe Biden. And I'm not a fan of Biden. He's not a smart guy, never was. You can go back 30 years, he was never a smart guy. But she's not smart either. She's not a smart person.
Are you going to debate her?
Well, I want to. We're leading in the polls, it seems, by quite a bit still. She's better than he is, but I think ultimately she'll be worse than him. She's more radical than him. He was a phony. She is also, but she's not a phony in terms of policy. She actually wants open borders. She actually wants to defund the police. To me, when you say open borders, defund the police, you don't have to go into the rest of it. But you're going to have tremendously high energy prices. She doesn't want any fossil fuels, which will destroy the country, frankly.
But just to be clear, she's doing a rewrite of history right now. She says that
of her history.
Of her history. She says, I don't necessarily mean I will ban fracking now. And she said, well, I don't necessarily need to do Medicare for all. And I was never the border czar. You know that.
Yeah, she's doing a rewrite. No, it's not a rewrite, it's lies. And she also said, and so did he, that we had a very secure border under them. We had the worst border in the history. 20 million people came in. 20 million people. And you know what they do? They just say it, and they keep saying it. The press helps them as much as possible. But they say very strongly, we had a great border. And people say, it's funny. You say it enough times and people start to believe it too. That's the scary part. They are, it's like a whole con job. It's misinformation, disinformation at the highest level. So now their new thing is we had a safe border. We had a wonderful border. And they hope people forget. Now, a lot of people aren't, but enough people are. And it's amazing that they can say it. We had the worst border in history. Joe Biden was the worst president in history. She was the worst vice president. She was the most unpopular and least respected vice president in the history of our country. And now what's happened is the press is trying to make her popular. I don't think they'll be able to do it.
Do you regret doing the debate when you did the debate? It gave the Democrats an opportunity to swap him out and put her in. Such an early debate.
They wanted a debate. If I didn't do the debate, they'd say, oh, Trump's, not doing the debate. That's the same thing they'll say now. I mean, right now I say, why should I do a debate? I'm leading in the polls. And everybody knows her. Everybody knows me. She wants open borders. She wants a weak military. She wants high taxes. They want to quadruple your taxes, more than that. With me, I want low taxes. I want a strong border. I want strong drug policy. Our country's becoming a drug-addicted country. We're like China from 200 years ago. Everybody took over China because everybody was drugged out with the opium. And then one day they said death penalty to anybody that deals, and lots of different things happened. But look, we have a country that's really become drug addicted. We have a drug addicted country, you know that. And we better do something about it. We better do it fast. It comes through the southern border. It comes out of China. And I had to deal with President Xi. They were going to give the death penalty to anybody sending drugs to America. They were going to give the fentanyl comes out of China. For some reason, it's made in China. It goes to the southern border. It comes into our country right now at 9 times more than it was 4 years ago. We had the strongest border that we've ever had in recorded history, and they have the worst border that we've ever had. Think of it, Maria. In 3.5 years, we have probably the numbers 20 million people came into our border, many from prisons and jails, many from mental institutions, okay? Insane
You said that a long time ago, and you were mocked.
I know.
In fact, now we know.
They're empty. You know why? Because it's common sense. It's all about common sense. If I ran one of those countries, I would do Honduras. But it's not just South America, okay? It's all over the world. It's the Congo in Africa. They're sending all their prisoners. The Congo are sending their prisoners to the United States. They're bringing them into the United States. They're driving them across. They're dumping them into our country. But it's Africa. It's Asia. It's the Middle East. It's not just South America, but South America has a lot. But you know what's happening? All of these jails all over the world are being emptied out, and they're bringing their prisoners and dumping them in the United States.
On the debate, she's taunting you now. She's saying he doesn't want to debate me. Say it to my face, President Trump. That's what she said the other night.
Look, she's a third-rate candidate. She failed at her attempt against many other candidates. You know, she was the first one to drop out. She never made Iowa. And that was when you had a normal press. Now you have a press that's trying to protect her. The media is really dishonest. And you have a press that's trying, so maybe she'll do better. I don't know. But I think ultimately, when they hear she wants to defund the police, when they hear that she wants open borders and always wanted them. But it is amazing. I watched the news yesterday, and it's almost like she wants to have strong borders all of a sudden. She was the worst border czar in history. And, you know, with politics, it's your first thought that you always go back to. She wanted open borders, and that's where she'll be. She wants all of these things that are bad for our country. And she does want to defund the police. She's weak on police. You know, I have almost 100% of the police forces, the police people, the associations are endorsing Trump. The sheriffs all over the country, nobody's endorsing her. She ruined San Francisco. She's a San Francisco liberal. She ruined San Francisco. She ruined the state of California. She was earlier than some of these people that are so bad right now.
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris is now deciding on her running mate. So it looks like the finalists are Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania. Does he help her get more votes in Pennsylvania? What about Mark Kelly? Does he help her with the border, Arizona?
Can I tell you, I don't care. Let them do whatever. They still want to have open borders. If she picks Shapiro, she's going to lose the Palestinian vote, and that's fine. Everybody has their liabilities. I think if she picks Shapiro, who happens to be Jewish, she loses her little Palestinian base because they like me because they think I'm going to bring peace to the Middle East, even though I'm very strong for Israel. Israel loves me. But, you know, a lot of the Arab states like me, too, because you know what they want to see? They want to see peace. And I did the Abraham Accords. Nobody realizes we would have had peace all over the Middle East. I think I would have gotten Iran into the Abraham Accords. You want to know the truth? They were dying to make a deal. Iran was broke. And then now they're a very wealthy country. They have $300 billion in cash. But Iran was broke. They would have made a deal, but Biden blew it as usual. They are the worst. Look, he's the worst president in the history of our country, and she's a big part of it.
Stay with us for more of my interview with the 45th president. He will give us his thoughts on tax policy, tariffs, AI, and tech. Wait till you hear what he said about Google. All that coming up. And it is time for the hot topic of the hour, the U.S.-Russia prisoner swap and rising tensions in the Middle East, making foreign policy a major focus of the 2024 race. President Trump weighing in on this, joining me in a wide-ranging interview on this and a lot more. Mr. President, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you very much.
So much has changed since the last time you and I sat together. Of course, a successful RNC, Biden dropping out, Kamala is in, and of course, an assassination attack on you. First question, how are you feeling? Good. I see you don't have the bandage on your ear anymore.
No, I got it off. It's a good healing process. Got it off. I feel great, actually.
Big news today. Russia and the U.S. In an exchange, a prisoner swap, largest East-West prisoner swap since the Cold War. What is your reaction that Russia freed the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and others?
Well, as usual, it was a win for Putin or any other country that deals with us, but we got somebody back, so I'm never going to be challenging that. It wouldn't have happened with us. We would have gotten him back. We wouldn't have had to pay anything. We wouldn't have had to let some of the great killers of the world go, because that's what's happened, as you know. And the deal's very complex because it just came out, so nobody understands the deal yet. And they make it complex, so you can't understand how bad the deal is for us. But we got him back. And we could have had him back. We should have had him back a long time ago. It should have never happened. It would have never happened. He shouldn't have been taken in the first place. And it would have never happened with us if I was president.
So it was more than prisoner swaps? It was something else?
I have no idea what they did. I just know they announced it's a very complex deal. That's usually a way of saying we made a bad deal and we made it complex so nobody understands it. So we have to find out, was money involved? Did we pay billions? Like last time we paid $6 billion in addition to everything else. So did we pay money? And I put something in Truth today, and it was very interesting. How much did we pay? Who are the people? How are they? Are they bad people? Are they killers? Who are the people? Now we're finding out that the people that they're getting back are serious, very serious people. I want to be nice about it. They're getting back some real killers.
Yeah, they're Russian hackers and...
You know, I did 59 people. We never gave 10 cents. But they gave them back. I did a lot of people where I said, you got to give them back. I called the head of the country, whatever the country was. I said, got to give them back. Just give them back. Right now, well, sir, we're a system based on courts and rule of law. I said, you have no rule of law. You're the rule of law. You got to get them back. And everybody came back. We got 59. And we didn't pay money. I got people back from North Korea. That's tougher than any other place to get people back. I had a good relationship with Kim Jong-un. We got people back. But, you know, when you start paying money or when you start making deals where you give, you know, the kind of people, these are really some tough people that they got back, the toughest in the world. You start doing that, and all of a sudden you have a lot of hostages taken prisoner, so to speak. And you'll have a lot of things happening. It's very bad. It's a very bad precedent.
Well, even the Wall Street Journal reported that you raised the stakes on this because during the debate, you said you better send the hostages home, and I'm going to get Evan Gershkovich home, and I expect that before I assume office. So you did raise the stakes on this.
They got a great deal. The Russians made a great deal. I'm not going to be criticizing it because it's good to have them home, but they got a phenomenal deal, and that sets a very bad precedent. Very, very bad precedent.
Ayatollah Khomeini has ordered a direct retaliatory attack on Israel. How worried should we be about this, as well as worried about a potential attack on America?
He has no respect for Biden. He had a lot of respect for me. We had no attacks. We had nothing. We never had an attack. The only little attack was on a fort. And they called me to say, we are going to be shooting some missiles at a fort. Please tell everyone to stay in place. We will not hit the fort. You remember that. They shot 18 missiles, 6 of them disassembled in air, 12 of them landed exactly as they said outside the fort, and nobody was injured in the true sense of the word, okay?
Are you worried about this retaliatory order against Israel?
Yeah, I'm worried about the people we have in office are grossly incompetent. I'm worried about World War III before I get there.
What about...
And we will not have World War III if I'm there. And
there
World
are
War
threats on you right now, right? I mean, we just heard more details about Iran reportedly plotting to assassinate you.
So I put out a word that if they do that, you have to blow them off the face of the earth, because you can't do that. You have to blow them right off the face of the earth. And I said that. I put it out on Truth 2 days ago. I said, because there was a report to that effect, and it could very well be true. And I said, if that happens, you have to blow that country off the face of the earth, because that'll be a whole new world order. The problem we have is nobody respects Biden and nobody respects Kamala. It's a big problem.
Yeah. You said at the debate and the RNC, you said, we want our hostages back and they better be back before I assume office or you will pay a very, very big price. What did you mean about a big price?
They know what I mean. But it looks like Biden's going to make a deal because he's giving away so much, so much. I mean, we're putting out people that nobody thought would ever be released again. This deal that was made today, I think it's wonderful that Evan's coming back. I think it's great. But these deals are so bad. These deals are going to lead to tremendous kidnappings, and people are going to be brought in. Every time somebody gets brought in, they say, we have a hostage. We want $2 billion. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. And once you agree to do it, which he has agreed all the time, it's only going to get worse. It's a terrible precedent.
Are you going to address the 50,000 Chinese nationals that have come into this country through
I'm going to
the
address
southern border?
everything. We're going to have a safe country.
Why are they here?
We're not going to, because they don't respect our leadership. Why did they send the balloon over America? They never did that with me. They would have never done it with me.
But I'm wondering what the plan is. I mean,
And the worst thing is,
unrest.
what these people do is disinformation. And I just see it today.
Right.
They said 2 weeks ago, well, maybe there was a balloon sent over during the Trump administration. There wasn't. Okay, now that was found out there wasn't. But what they're doing is they're saying we had a strong border. They had the worst border in the history of the world. There's never been a border like this, any country. But they figure if they keep saying it, they'll say all sorts of things. Look, they're not respected. It's like amateur night. Look at this hostage deal. And it's so complicated that nobody understands it. And that's the way they want it to be because it's such a bad deal. But I'm glad our hostages are back.
Mr. President, I really want to focus on policy in this interview because I want to make sure people understand what your policy is.
Okay.
And with regard to the military, there was a report today that the military has been so depleted that if there were ever a conflict between China and the United States, the U.S. would lose. A global conflict during World War II ended nearly 80 years ago. The nation was last prepared for such a fight during the Cold War 35 years ago. And this commission finds that in many ways, China is in fact outpacing the United States and has largely negated the U.S. military advantage in the Western Pacific. How can you change that?
Can you imagine having a commission of military officers and other things say anything like that, even if it's true? Why would you ever release a report like that? It puts us in such a bad position and a bad light. But people want to, we have a great military. I've proved that with ISIS. I knocked them out in 4 weeks. They were supposed to be, it was going to take 5 years if I listened to these generals from Washington that are in television like Milley. It was almost an impossible thing. We knocked them out in 4 weeks. Look, we have woke people on the top, but the military is not woke. The military is incredible. If you look at the job they did for me on ISIS, it was unbelievable. It was surgical. We have the greatest military. But can you imagine somebody writing a report like that? It's so bad, and then releasing it for the world to see. That's a very bad report.
This is the National Defense Strategy recognizes these nations as top threats to the United States and declares China to be the pacing challenge right now.
No, but when they write a report saying we can't beat China, I think that's a very negative thing. It's one thing to have a meeting and saying that we got to get our act together. You know, I rebuilt our military, largely rebuilt. We had
you need to do it again.
We had jets that are 50 years old. Well, we gave 85 billion of it to Afghanistan. How about that? $85 billion we gave. Do you know that Afghanistan is one of the largest sellers of military equipment in the world? They're selling the equipment that we gave them when this really low IQ president pulled out. And he pulled out the military first.
Are you going to
He pulled out, think of that. He pulled out the military. That's why we had 13 dead soldiers, but we also had 45 soldiers who were no legs, no arms, the face, the whole thing. And we also have, you know, we still have Americans left behind in Afghanistan, right? I mean, and we gave up Bagram, one of the biggest air bases in the world. We gave it up. It was almost like we fled. That was the most incompetent act. I think it was the lowest point in the history of our country. So Bagram is 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. We gave it up. And you know who occupies it now? China.
Meta said that the picture wasn't altered. At first they said it was altered, and then they said, no, it was a bug, it was a mistake.
Mark
So my
Zuckerberg-
point is these companies would not allow any information out about what happened.
So Mark Zuckerberg called me. First of all, he called me a few times. He called me after the event, and he said that was really amazing. It was very brave, and you know, and he actually announced he's not going to support a Democrat because he can't, because he respected me for what I did that day. I think what I did maybe was to me, it was a normal response. But I was called by Mark Zuckerberg yesterday, the day before, on this same subject. And he actually apologized. He said they made a mistake, et cetera, and they're correcting the mistake. Google, nobody called from Google.
About TikTok, I see that there's a lot of propaganda on TikTok, and I'm seeing a lot of positives about Kamala Harris. Is China, the CCP, all in for Kamala Harris on TikTok?
Well, you know, China probably wants her because China understands that I understand China. She doesn't. And it's interesting. If people want to save TikTok, they have to vote for me. If they don't want to save TikTok, you know, well, let's see what happens. But China doesn't want me to win, obviously, because I was kicking China's ass. Nobody ever beat China. I took hundreds of billions of dollars out of China. I took contracts away from China. I took the phone system away from China, going to Italy and to other countries. China will do everything they can. And it's one of the things that's really a little bit nerve-wracking. They are putting the full force. They don't want me. They want to continue to rip off America. And with me, they can't rip. Look, she is not a smart person. She's not a smart person. If you look back 5 weeks ago, before this whole thing happened, where, you know, it's a coup of Joe Biden, and all of a sudden the media says, well, we're stuck with her, so now we're going to make her smart. And these are people that are very pro-China. These are people that are pro-other countries. These are people that look at a worldview and they think the United States is going to be a dumping ground for the rest of the world. These are people that are not good for our country. But China wants to have her so badly. They wanted Joe Biden too. They wanted anybody but me. I've taken hundreds of billions of dollars away from China. I've taken businesses away from China. China is not doing well right now because of me. You know, Biden cannot get rid of the taxes, the tariffs that I put on China. Can't. You know why? Because they've taken so much money. I'm the one that did that. And one thing, before me, there was no other president that took 10 cents out of China.
Well, they say that they're a developing nation. Meanwhile,
yeah, they do that. Well, they're not we're a developing
economy. Why is the Trump campaign on TikTok? A CCP control?
Yeah, because no, I want that. I mean, I said I want to go on TikTok. I'm the one that says we should save TikTok.
You can't get respect on these big platforms. Do you think it's fair to go back to X, as well as your Truth Social? Of course, you've got Truth Social.
Truth Social is doing phenomenal. Look, that's my voice. But X, it's great that he bought it. It's great that Elon bought it, because I'm for our country more than I'm for anything else. And they were really dishonest with Twitter. I don't know. I'm not sure. You're sort of interested. It's a very interesting thing. Should they have changed the name and all that? But that doesn't matter. Look, it was great that Elon bought it because we have a voice. We had no voice on Twitter. We had no voice at all. You put everything you put out, they'd put a flag on it. No matter what you said, they'd put a flag on it. Now, I think he's trying to do a really good job. I think he's doing an important job. I don't know if it's a good business deal. Maybe not. Probably it's not a good business deal, but I think it's important that he bought it.
I know that a lot of Silicon Valley types got behind you after the assassination attempt on your life. And of course, Elon Musk was supportive before that. And then just over the last 2 weeks, we see what happened with Google and Meta. Google's search bar would not bring up results of the shooting. Their AI tool would not even give any information about it. Meta's AI tool said that the shooting was fictional. Facebook labeled photos of you pumping your fist as altered. You still have a major problem with big tech, don't you?
So AI is very complex. It's got tremendous potential, but it also has potential to destroy. And they actually had one of the pictures with everything the same, except they have all of the Secret Service agents around me who are great people, very brave people, because they ran into that fire. Those bullets were going right over my head. And I heard them going. They were moving along. And these people were jumping on top of me. There wasn't one of them that was slow moving, or you saw them. They didn't care. They were jumping on top of me. As fast as I was down, they were on top of me. They were very brave. And when I got up, you see the faces. They were not happy. They were angry, and they were looking around. They actually have one picture where the Secret Service is all smiling. They're laughing as they're protecting me. I have the same hand up, everything else. And then it's AI. It's a very dangerous thing. You've got to be we got to be very careful with artificial intelligence.
Well, Meta said that the picture wasn't altered. At first they said it was altered, and then they said, no, it was a bug, it was a mistake.
Mark
So my
Zuckerberg,
point is
right.
These companies would not allow any information out about what happened.
So Mark Zuckerberg called me. First of all, he called me a few times. He called me after the event, and he said that was really amazing. It was very brave, and and he actually announced he's not going to support a Democrat because he can't, because he respected me for what I did that day. I think what I did maybe was to me, it was a normal response. But I was called by Mark Zuckerberg yesterday, the day before, on this same subject. And he actually apologized. He said they made a mistake, et cetera, and they're correcting the mistake. Google, nobody called from Google. One of the things, like doing a show like yours, your show, you see it on Fox. But where you really see it is all over the place. They take clips of your show that you're doing right now with me. And if I do a good job, they're going to vote for me. They're going to vote for me because it's not just on Fox. It's on Fox is a smaller part of it. You're on all over those little beautiful cell phones. You're all over the place. You have a product. You have a great product. You have a great brand. So you have to get out. You have to get out. You have to do things like your show and other shows. And Google has been very bad. They've been very irresponsible. And I have a feeling that Google is going to be close to shutdown because I don't think Congress is going to take it. I really don't think so. Google has to be careful. Now, I will say this. I believe Mark Zuckerberg. He called me a lot. They are working, and I think they fixed it.
But what
and he's not doing what he did 4 years ago with the $500 million, I don't believe.
The Zuckerbugs.
Yeah, and he's not endorsing a Democrat, which is the first time in his life that he hasn't done.
Are you going to encourage that their liability protection is removed should you return?
Well, it's in Congress now, and when I look at some of the parents who have been absolutely destroyed by it, that's okay with me. I think you have to do something. I do think it's a very slippery slope. I think it's very hard to do. I mean, they're going to have to go through every tweet, or they're going to have to go through every single thing that happens, like in the case of Elon. And Elon's doing a good job. Elon endorsed me very strongly. And
what about TikTok?
He's got a good insight into this whole mess that
what do you
we're
mean?
in. Elon Musk. I think I found him to be very his view on the whole situation with should we have restrictions. And I think he wants certain restrictions, but it gets to be, look, it's a very complicated subject. It's freedom of speech. It's a whole thing. But when you see some of these kids being, committing suicide over false things that are put out over these platforms, I will say that Jeff Bezos, who I didn't really know, called me, and he said that picture is one of the most important pictures in the history of our country. And he was very nice, even though he owns the Washington Post. Okay, we had a long talk, but he said I was glued to my television for longer than I've ever been glued to my television.
So all these people called you after the assassination?
They all called me and they said, thank you. They actually thanked me. Nobody from Google did, but Jeff Bezos did. Mark Zuckerberg did. Elon does. I mean, Elon's a friend of mine. Elon gave me the strongest endorsement. Elon is not somebody to endorse if he doesn't believe in you. And he gave me the strongest. And I'm not so great on his electric cars. Think of it. It's not like I'm saying, oh, let's go all electric, because he understands that that system won't work. That will actually end up hurting the electric car.
Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris will be holding a rally in Philadelphia today, where she is expected to be joined by her running mate, which has reportedly been narrowed down to two: Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro or Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Now, Politico is reporting this morning that most of the Democrats they spoke to last night say they believe the chances are higher for Harris picking Tim Walz, a big reversal in expectations from just a few days ago, even a day ago. Republican vice presidential nominee and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance will also be campaigning in South Philadelphia this afternoon. It's going to be his first stop in the Keystone State since joining the Trump ticket. And there's this: a new poll finds that Trump and Harris are tied at 48% in Pennsylvania. The two campaigns are reportedly spending more than double on advertising in Pennsylvania than in any of the other 6 swing states. Axios says, quote, Trump and Harris go all in to make Pennsylvania the new Florida. Joining me now is Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Mueser. He's a member of the House Financial Services and Small Business Committees. Congressman, this morning, all eyes are on Pennsylvania. Your thoughts?
Yes, good morning, Cheryl. Yes, I am in Philadelphia, and it is going to be quite a day here. We have Dave McCormick in town, who's run for U.S. Senate, and then we have J.D. Vance. And yes, I heard something about the Vice President Harris in town going to.
Just a rumor.
Yeah, just I heard it the early somebody talking at the water cooler. But look, this thing's going to come down to there's such a stark difference between a common sense conservative Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, who's the most radical, self-proclaimed, be more woke, ranked the most liberal United States senator in the Senate. That's pretty hard to do when you're going up against Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. So there's such a stark difference there. The vice president is very much minimized, even here in Pennsylvania. But I'll just add this, Cheryl, the idea, first of all, it makes the most sense. Pennsylvania's in play to offer the position to our governor, Shapiro. But the idea that in the Democrat Party, it's so controversial that he supports Israel over Iran, and the party finds that so controversial, that's pretty disturbing. Democrats ought to be paying attention to that.
What do you make of this reporting that that Waltz is actually more of the choice? I mean, that's Politico.
Yeah, well, that's what we are hearing. And by the way, Walt's latest comment that being socialist is kind of like being neighborly. It sounds as if he's going to fit very well with the ideology of Kamala Harris. Let's face it, Kamala Harris doesn't know anything about economics, doesn't know anything about international diplomacy or military. She knows her ideology, and her and her minions care more about their ideology than they care about any sort of outcomes for the American people. There's no plan. There's no economic plan. There's no plan for strengthening our national security. They're anti-energy. They're for open borders. I mean, it's bizarre. It's gas backwards. It's upside down.
Yeah, no, we were just showing the different biographies of these two men. So we'll see. It could happen at any moment when we get that announcement. But certainly, as we mentioned, J.D. Vance going to be right there, and you'll be there, I'm sure. So former President Trump wants to make the economy the focus of the 2024 race. He's blaming Vice President Harris for yesterday's stock market sell-off, writing on Truth Social that voters have a choice: Trump prosperity or the Kamala crash and the Great Depression of 2024. If we're going to get back to talking about the economy, Congressman, what say you?
Well, look, the so-called Bidenomics that she speaks so highly of was all about excessive spending, assault on domestic energy, raising taxes, making it far more difficult for small businesses to do business and large businesses. And what their plan is to double down. So the economy, industry, business hears that, they see that, and then take into account the turmoil that exists throughout the world. It's a very unpredictable environment, not one that has any pro-growth initiatives whatsoever. And so even if there's a 10% or 20% chance Kamala Harris could win, it's a nervous market, and it will continue to be volatile. And I think President Trump is absolutely right. I mean, his pro-growth plans to make the United States the most competitive place in the world to do business, to bring stability, and to bring great trade agreements, that will create a boom to the markets.
Well, and Congressman, maybe bring up the issue of student debt. I mean, let's look at the tally here where we're at now under the Biden-Harris administration with student debt. They've given, it's $167 billion in student debt to 5 million Americans that they've forgiven thus far. That's something else that J.D. Vance can bring up today when he's in South Philadelphia, Congressman. So, real quick before you go, I just am curious, the state of play, Pennsylvania is in the eyes of both candidates right now. What do these candidates need to do to secure Pennsylvania? Is the topic energy? Is it fracking? Is it health care? Is it student debt? Something else?
Yeah. Well, you just went through a good list there. We care a lot about the border issue, which is a total disgrace. And let's face it, Kamala Harris was the border czar. So let's use that as an example of how effective she is in her tasks. The fentanyl deaths in Pennsylvania running rampant. Any chief of police in any of my small cities will tell you that those drugs are coming from the border. 20% inflation is on people's every day. They're feeling it in the groceries and the gasoline. So that's not a good thing. How public safety. Kamala Harris just is. And not taking any leadership when it comes to fighting crime, as well as defunding the police. And by the way, on the border, she wants to disband ICE. These are all things that don't sit well. They're not relatable to the Pennsylvania voter. And you mentioned health care. She wants to completely do away with employment-based health care, which is millions of Pennsylvanians. So they're going to have a tough time selling their policy in Pennsylvania.
Well,
Trump's policies are winners. Winners.
Well, she's been changing a lot of those policies, which we've been reporting on extensively. Congressman Dan Muser, big day ahead for you. Thank you for being here.
Great. Well, there you go. Let's go to President Trump right now.
I think that our country is right now in the most dangerous position it's ever been in from an economic standpoint, from a safety standpoint. Both gangs on the street and, frankly, gangs outside of our country in the form of other countries that are, frankly, very powerful. They're very powerful countries, and we don't know what we're doing. We have leadership that has no clue how to handle them or how to handle any other situation. We have a lot of bad things coming up. You could end up in a depression of the 1929 variety, which would be a devastating thing. Took many years, took decades to recover from it. And we're very close to that. And we're very close to a world war. In my opinion, we're very close to a world war. We have people that don't know how to handle it. They're not respected. All over the world, they're laughed at. And we can't have that. Most dangerous period of time I've ever seen for our country. With that being said, we have somebody that hasn't received one vote for president, and she's running. And that's fine with me. But we were given Joe Biden, and now we're given somebody else. And I think, frankly, I'd rather be running against the somebody else. But that was their choice. They decided to do that because Kamala's record is horrible. She's a radical left person at a level that nobody's seen. She picked a radical left man that is, he's got things done that he has positions that are just not, it's not even possible to believe that they exist. He's going for things that nobody's ever even heard of. Heavy into the transgender world, heavy into lots of different worlds having to do with safety. He doesn't want to have borders. He doesn't want to have walls. He doesn't want to have any form of safety for our country. He doesn't mind people coming in from prisons, and neither does she, I guess, because she's not, she couldn't care less. She's the border czar. By the way, she was the border czar 100%. And all of a sudden, for the last few weeks, she's not the border czar anymore, like nobody ever said it. And I just hope that the media becomes more diligent, more honest, frankly, because if they're not going to be honest, it's going to be much tougher to bring our country back. We have a very, very sick country right now. You saw the other day with the stock market crashing. That was just the beginning. That was just the beginning. It's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse, in my opinion. And fortunately, we've had some very good polls over the last fairly short period of time. Rasmussen came out today. We're substantially leading, and others came out today that we're leading, and in some cases substantially. I guess MSNBC came out, or CNBC came out also with a poll that was, has us leading. And leading fairly big in swing states. In some polls, I'm leading very big in swing states because they want safety. People want safety. They want security. They want respect all around the world for our country. They don't want this horrible culture that is developing, a culture of no common sense. It's really a culture of no common sense, and it's not what anyone wants. We want to have a safe country. We want to have a strong military. We want low interest rates, and we want to be able to have the American dream. We want to be able to have our youth be able to buy homes, housing, get good jobs. And we're really just at the opposite right now. It's so sad to see. But as a border czar, she's been the worst border czar in history, in the world history. I think the number is 20 million, but whether it's 15 or 20, it's numbers that nobody's ever heard before. 20 million people came over the border during the Biden-Harris administration. 20 million people. And it could be very much higher than that. Nobody really knows what the number is. Nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. And the gotaways, they call them the gotaways. The gotaways are at numbers. Somebody was quizzing me on it the other day. No, I don't think so, sir. I don't think so. They have no idea what those numbers are, but they're much higher than you would think. Just like far more people were killed in the Ukraine-Russia war than you ever report. Just like the October 7th would have never happened. Russia would have never hit Ukraine had the election result been called differently. It was a very bad call, but Russia would not have attacked Ukraine. October 7th in Israel would have never happened. You wouldn't have inflation. A lot of great things would have happened, but now you have millions and millions of dead people, and you have people dying financially because they can't buy bacon, they can't buy food, they can't buy groceries, they can't do anything. And they're living horribly in our country right now. With all of that being said, I think it's very important to have debates, and we've agreed with Fox on a date of September 4th. We've agreed with NBC, fairly full agreement, subject to them, on September 10th. And we've agreed with ABC on September 25th. So we have those three dates, and those networks, they're very anxiously awaiting that date and those dates. So we have September 4th, September 10th, and September 25th. We have spoken to the heads of the network, and it's all been confirmed, other than some fairly minor details. Audience, some location, which city would we put it into, but all things that will be settled very easily. I think it'll be very easy. The other side has to agree to the terms. They may or may not agree. I don't know if they're going to agree. She hasn't done an interview. She can't do an interview. She's barely competent, and she can't do an interview. But I look forward to the debates because I think we have to set the record straight. Why is it that millions of people were allowed to come into our country from prisons, from jails, from mental institutions, insane asylums, even insane asylums? It's a mental institution on steroids. That's what it is. When you see the people that are coming into these are institutions that are being emptied out, not in South America, all over the world, including South America, all over the world. Prisons are being emptied out into our country because we have a president that's the worst president in the history of our country. We have a vice president who is the least admired, least respected, and the worst vice president in the history of our country, the most unpopular vice president. And because of political reasons or because of being politically correct, even though she never received a vote. Don't forget, she was the first one defeated, as I remember it, because I watched it very closely, but she was the first one. She never made it to Iowa, the first state. She never made it to Iowa. She was the first one that was defeated. She was the nastiest to him. She was nasty with calling him a racist and the school bus and all of the different things. She was very nasty to Biden. And shockingly, he appointed her, asked her to serve as vice president. Well, I don't know if he's happy about that decision right now. This was taken away. The presidency was taken away from Joe Biden. And I'm no Biden fan, but I'll tell you what, from a constitutional standpoint, from any standpoint you look at, they took the presidency away. And people were saying he lost after the debate. He couldn't win. Well, I don't know that that's true necessarily. But whether he could win or he couldn't win, he had the right to run. And they took it away. They said they're going to use the 25th Amendment. They're going to hit you hard. Either we could do it the nice. I know exactly, because I know a lot of people on the other side, believe it or not. And they said, we'll do it the nice way or we'll do it the hard way. And he said, all right. So that, I mean, they've really taken, what they've done is pretty incredible. And now I'm running against somebody else and we're leading. So I'm not complaining. I'm saying for a country with a constitution that we cherish this constitution. To have done it this way is pretty severe, pretty horrible. You would have thought they would have gone out to a vote. They would have had a primary system. They would have done something, but to just take it away from him like he was a child. And he's a very angry man right now. I can tell you that. He's not happy with Obama, and he's not happy with Nancy Pelosi, crazy Nancy. She is crazy too. She's not happy with any of the people that told him that you've got to leave. He's very unhappy, very angry. And I think he also blames her. He's trying to put up a good face, but it's a very bad thing in terms of a country when you do that. I'm not a fan of his, as you probably have noticed. And he had a rough debate, but that doesn't mean that you just take it away like that. Or you go out to a vote, you do something. He had 14 million votes. She had no votes. She got no votes. And I think she's crashing. I think when people find out, and I think people are starting to find out what a bad job she did, what a bad job she did on the border. She's trying to say she had nothing to do with the border. She had everything. She was appointed to head the border. And then they said, border czar, oh, she loved that name. She loved that name, but she never went there. She went to a location once along the border, but that was a location that you would love to go and have dinner with your husband or whoever. That was a location that was not part of the problem. That was not really going to the border. So essentially, she never went to the border. And if you listen to Tom Homan, if you listen to the great border people, Brandon Judd from Border Patrol, if you listen to Paul, I mean, so many different people. I speak to them all the time. And I did when I was president. We had the best border in the history of our country. Now we have the worst border in the history of the world. Millions of people coming in, and our country cannot sustain it. Our country is going down because of this, because of incompetent people. So I just look forward to these debates. I think it's very important that we have them. I hope she agrees to them September 4th, September 10th, September 25th. And I think they'll be very revealing. I think they'll be very revealing. Do you have any questions, please? I haven't recalibrated strategy at all. It's the same policies, open borders, weak on crime. I think she's worse than Biden because he got forced into the position. She was there long before. She destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed California as the AG. But as the DA, she destroyed San Francisco. A friend of mine, Bob Tisch, all know the Tisch family. He was in many cities with companies. He said the greatest city in the country is San Francisco. That was about 20 years ago. And he passed away a while ago, and he would be looking down and said, what happened? He thought it was the best city in the country. He had divisions there, lows. And he would be looking down in horror now when he sees she destroyed no cash bail, weak on crime. She's terrible. And yet they weaponized the system against me. They have me. I got so many lawyers. Now they want to delay cases. I won the big case in Florida. I won the big case. Nobody even wrote about it. The big case, the judge was a brilliant judge. And all they do is they play the ref with the judges. This judge was a fair but brilliant judge. And as you probably heard, the big documents case, I won it. Now, Biden lost it because he didn't have presidential immunity. He didn't have the Presidential Records Act. He lost it. But the I call it prosecutor, special counsel, special prosecutor to me, he appointed by him, appointed by Garland, he said the man's incompetent. He can't stand trial, but he can run for president. But we no longer have to worry about that because we have somebody that, in my opinion, is more incompetent. She couldn't pass her bar exam and lots of other things. And she should not be in a position because if she becomes president, our country is going to be a giant fail. It's going to fail. It's going to be a failure the likes of which this world has never seen. Yeah, please. All right, how about you? You have to speak louder. Yeah. Well, it changes around a little bit. I'm getting other voters. Perhaps, I was doing very well with black voters, and I still am. I seem to be doing very well with black males. This is according to polls, as you know. It's possible that I won't do as well with black women, but I do seem to be doing very well with other segments, extremely well with Hispanic. Jewish voters way up. White males way up. White males have gone through the roof. White males way up. No, I don't know. All we're doing is giving you the stats that you have. It could be that I'll be affected somewhat with black females, where we're doing pretty well. And I think ultimately they'll like me better because I'm going to give them security, safety, and jobs. I'm going to give them a good economy. We have a very bad economy right now. We could literally be on the throes of a depression, not recession, a depression. And they can't have that. They can't have that. So I think I'm going to do well with everybody, especially when the facts are out. Yeah, please, in the back. Well, I don't know. I know Josh Shapiro. He's a terrible guy, and he's not very popular with anybody. I think that this election maybe is better than Josh Shapiro would have been. But I think other than Josh Shapiro, I think she had some good choices. But Josh Shapiro is not one of them. He's caused a lot of damage with a lot of people. And I don't think he would have been better. I think he would have been maybe the equivalent, maybe not as good. But they had some people that they were looking at that were good, far superior to her. They actually had a story where they had everybody, including, they had like 10 people that she was looking at and her. And they said she was the worst of all. In other words, she was the worst out of the 10 people and her. I don't know how that's going to work out. We'd like to do 3 debates. We think we should do 3 debates. We think Fox and ABC, and we also have CBS is going to do the vice presidential debate. So CBS will do vice presidential, and I have to tell you, J.D. Vance has really stepped up. He's doing a fantastic job. Say it. Oh, give me a break. Listen. I had 107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday? 2,000 people? If I ever had 2,000 people, you'd say my campaign is finished. It's so dishonest, the press. And here's a great example. I had in Michigan recently 25,000 people, and 25,000 people we just couldn't get them in. We had in Harrisburg, 25,000 people, and 20,000 people couldn't get in. We had so many, nobody ever mentions that. When she gets 1,500 people, and I saw it yesterday on ABC, which they said, oh, the crowd was so big. I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size. And no, they never say the crowd was big. That's why I'm always saying, turn around the cameras. I'm so glad you asked that. I think it's so terrible when you say, well, she has 1,500 people, 1,000 people, and they talk about, oh, the enthusiasm. Let me tell you, we have the enthusiasm. The Republican Party, and me as a candidate, but the Republican Party has the enthusiasm because people want to see crime stopped. They want to see a country that's respected. Think of it. If I were president, you wouldn't have Russia and Ukraine, where it never happened. 0 chance. You wouldn't have had October 7th of Israel. You wouldn't have the horrible withdrawal. And I don't mean the withdrawal, because the withdrawal was fine. I was ready to withdraw from Afghanistan, and we were going to do it with dignity and strength. And we were keeping our equipment. We weren't leaving $85 billion worth of equipment behind. And we wouldn't have had 13 great soldiers. I know the families of those soldiers well. We wouldn't have had the soldiers killed, and we wouldn't have had 45 soldiers obliterated. No legs, no arms, the face. None of that would have happened. And you wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had any inflation, because inflation was caused by their bad energy problems. Now they've gone back to the Trump thing because they need the votes. I don't know if you know, they're drilling now because they had to go back because gasoline was going up to $7, $8, $9 a barrel. So they said, we better do what Trump. But the day after the election, if they won, you're going to have fuel prices go through the roof. Everybody's going to be forced to buy an electric car, which they're not going to do because they don't want that. It's got a great market. It's got a market. It's really a sub-market. People want gasoline-propelled cars. They want hybrids. They want to have everything, and they want electric. But they want everybody to have an electric car. We don't have enough electricity. We couldn't make enough electricity for that. And you know what else? The weight of a car, the weight of a truck. They want all trucks to be electric. little things that a lot of people don't talk about. The weight of a truck is 2.5 times heavier. You would have to rebuild every bridge in this country if you were going to do this ridiculous policy. So, but on crowd size, in history, for any country, nobody's had crowds like I have, and you know that. And when she gets 1,000 people and everybody starts jumping, you know that if I had 1,000 people would say, that's the end of his campaign. I have hundreds of thousands of people. In South Carolina, I had 88,000 people. In Alabama, I had 68,000 people. Nobody says about crowd size with me, but she has 1,000 people or 1,500 people, and they say, oh, the enthusiasm's back. No. The enthusiasm is with me and the Republican Party, because they want to stop crime. They want to stop people from pouring into our country from places unknown and from countries unknown, from countries that nobody ever heard of. That's where the enthusiasm is. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I can or not. I got him elected. Without me, he wouldn't be governor. I got him elected. He was doing terribly. I got him elected. With that being said, I hope we can repair it. But if we don't, the people are still the people, and they're going to vote. We're leading in Georgia by a lot. We're leading in Pennsylvania by a lot. So, but I don't know. Now in Pennsylvania, I have great relationships. In Georgia, I do too, but unfortunately not with the governor. I've never understood it. When you get somebody elected, they're supposed to like you. He's not exactly for some reason, and you'll have to ask him about that. Yeah, I'd love to see it get repaired. I think that if we don't win Georgia, Georgia is a big win, is a big state. So I won Alabama by a record. Nobody's ever gotten that many votes. I won South Carolina by a record. You don't win Alabama and South Carolina by records and lose Georgia. It doesn't happen. And the people of Georgia understand that. There was tremendous anxiety and problems in Georgia. A lot of people say, what happened? And we have to, all we want is honest elections. If we have honest elections in Georgia, we have honest elections in Pennsylvania, we're going to win them by a lot. Well, he actually said it two ways. First, he said it incorrectly, then he corrected himself. Do you agree with that, right? You know, if you watch him, he said it two ways. No. I mean, he said it two ways because he doesn't really know what he said. Why didn't he bring it up at the debate? You know, he had a chance for 90 minutes to bring it up at the debate. He could have talked about that at the debate, and he didn't do it. Everyone said, oh, he said this and he said that. He's just, you know, they give him something to read off. He read it very badly because he actually said it the opposite. Then he had to go back and correct himself. He said the opposite. He should have brought this up at the debate. If he had a problem, of course there'll be a peaceful transfer. And there was last time, and there'll be a peaceful transfer. I just hope we're going to have honest elections. That's all. Okay? What a stupid question this is. Because I'm leading by a lot, and because I'm letting their convention go through, and I am campaigning a lot. I'm doing tremendous amounts of taping here. We have commercials that are at a level I don't think that anybody's ever done before. Plus, in certain cases, I see many of you in the room where I'm speaking to you on phones, I'm speaking to radio, I'm speaking to television. Television's coming over here. Excuse me, what are we doing right now? She's not doing any news conference. You know why she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference. She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference. And I'm sorry, we need smart people to lead this country because our country's never been in this danger before, both economically and from an outside perspective. Russia doesn't respect us anymore. China doesn't respect us anymore. North Korea, Kim Jong-un liked me a lot. He doesn't like this group. We are in great danger. We're in great danger of being in World War III. That could happen. No, after their convention, yeah. And I'm going out. Actually, I'm going out to certain places to help certain senators get elected. Not even for me. I'm trying to help when I go out to Wyoming or when I go out to Montana, or I'm going to different places to help people. And
I don't have to go there because I'm leading those states, as you know, by 35, 40, 50 points. I'm leading by record numbers. I'm going because I want to help senators and congressmen get elected. Congressmen and women get elected. Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead. The upcoming what? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Elon Musk. So, yeah, sure. So Elon called me. As you know, he endorsed me full-throated. Great endorsement. I respect Elon a lot. He respects me. And not easy for him to endorse, to be honest with you. You know, it takes courage to endorse people. Many people have courage and many people don't. He does have courage. And Elon endorsed me, and he asked me whether or not I'd do a show on Monday, and I think it's going to be Monday night. And I believe he's the host of the show. So it'll be very interesting. A lot of people are talking about it. I look forward to it. That'll be done on Monday night. Well, you have a lot of misinformation spread about China, and you have a lot of misinformation spread about a lot of different places. I think I'm going to get along great with China. President Xi of China and I were very good friends. We met right here, right in that, except we had a beautiful sofa there as opposed to what we have right now. Right now we have you. But President Xi and I had a very good relationship until COVID. And I held him responsible for COVID. It broke up our relationship. But I think we're going to have a great relationship. And I think it's going to be mutually beneficial. But we cannot have it where China is taking advantage of the United States. And that's what they were doing, as you very well know. Yes, please. What's your question? No, I think the people that, if you look at January 6th, which a lot of people aren't talking about very much, I think those people were treated very harshly when you compare them to other things that took place in this country where a lot of people were killed. Nobody was killed on January 6th. But I think that the people of January 6th were treated very unfairly. And they were there to complain, not through me. They were there to complain about an election. And, you know, it's very interesting. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I said peacefully and patriotically, which nobody wants to say, but I said peacefully and patriotically. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and you've seen, Maggie, I was at the mall. I was at the Washington Monument. I was at the whole thing. I had crowds. I don't know who's ever had a bigger crowd than I have, but I had it many times. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken before was that day. And I'll tell you, it's very hard to find a picture of that crowd. You see the picture of a small number of people relatively going to the Capitol, but you never see the picture of the crowd. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken, I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people. If not, we had more. And they said he had 1 million people, but I had 25,000 people. But when you look at the exact same picture, and everything's the same because it was the fountains, the whole thing, all the way back to from Lincoln to Washington, and you look at it, and you look at the picture of his crowd, my crowd, we actually had more people. They said I had 25,000, and he had 1 million people, and I'm okay with it because I liked Dr. Martin Luther King. Yeah, please. Yeah, sure. We have a constitution. It's a very important document, and we live by it. She has no votes, and I'm very happy to run against her. I'm not complaining from that standpoint. And I hate to be defending him, but he did not want to leave. He wanted to see if he could win. They said, you're not going to win after the debate. They said, you're not going to win. You can't win. You're out. And at first they said it nicely, and he wasn't leaving. And then you know it better than anybody. Wait a minute. So when you think about it, they said At first, they were going to go out to another vote. They were going to go through a primary system, a quick primary system, which it would have to be. And then it all disappeared, and they just picked a person that was the first out. She was the first loser, okay? So we call her the first loser. She was the first loser when during the primary system. During the Democrat primary system, she was the first one to quit, and she quit. She had no votes, no support, and she was a bad debater, by the way, very bad debater. And that's not the thing I'm looking forward to, but she was a bad debater. She did obviously a bad job. She never made it to Iowa. Then for some reason, and I know he regrets it, you do too, he picked her, and she turned on him too. She was working with the people that wanted him out. But the fact that you can get no votes, lose in the primary system, in other words, you had 14 or 15 people, she was the first one out, and that you can then be picked to run for president, it seems to me actually unconstitutional. Perhaps it's not. Please.
Against Joe Biden, are there any ways that you see her as a more challenging opponent than those other two?
So I've run against Hillary, and I've run against various other people. I would say that in terms of intelligence, Hillary was far superior. I would say that. Hillary was smart. She was her own worst enemy in many ways, but she was smart, very smart. Okay? If you ask me to compare them, please. Would you repeat that question, please? You have to speak up. It's a hard room because it's very big, if you know. So this is worth $18 million. Oh, I see.
On abortion, that was probably more popular with general election voters than many of your Republican rivals in the primary did. You said leave it to the states. Given that Florida is a state voting on that this fall,
yeah.
How do you plan to vote? Do you plan to support?
So I think the abortion issue has been very much tempered down, and I've answered, I think, very well in the debate, and it seems to be much less of an issue, especially for those where they have the exceptions, as you know. And I think it's when I look for 52 years, they wanted to bring abortion back to the states. They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and that's Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and everybody. Liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back in the states. And I did that. Now the states are voting. And frankly, some of the votes are much more, if you could say, liberal than you would think. Ohio turned out to be, they had a big vote, and it turned out to be a much more liberal standing than people would have thought. Kansas, the same thing. And then you have Texas, and you have other places where it may be different. But the issue has been brought back to the states now. And like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly. I think that that's a very important thing. I think when you have to follow your heart. But when you don't believe in the exceptions, I think it's much tougher. It's a much tougher issue. But about 82% of Republicans do believe in exceptions. I think and a lot of them are changing their mind and coming even further. I think that abortion has become much less of an issue. It's a very small, I think it's actually going to be a very small issue. What I've done is I've done what every Democrat and every Republican wanted to have done, and we brought that issue back to the states. And now the states are voting on it. And frankly, some of the votes are a lot different than people would have thought. But it's the vote of the people is taking care of it. And, you know, when you think about the Democrats are really the radical ones in this because they're allowed to do abortion on the 8th and 9th month and even after birth. If you look at your new governor from Minnesota, he's like the governor previous, the former governor. I don't want to get him mixed up because Glenn is doing a good job and he's leading our whole campaign in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. But previous to Glenn, the governor, he said, the baby will be born. We will put the baby aside and we will decide with the mother what we're going to do. In other words, whether or not we're going to kill the baby. The Minnesota gentleman, this guy agrees with that. He is the most liberal. Look, between her and him, there's never been anything like this. There's never been a combination so I'll use the word progressive. You know, they want to go progressive. They don't like the word liberal. I like liberal better. I think it's more appropriate because nobody knows what progressive means. But they now like to use the word progressive. But there's certainly never been anybody so liberal like these two, or even close. I think the abortion issue has been taken down many notches. I don't think it's a big factor anymore, really. And when people hear what I said in the debate, and I think I said it very well during the debate, we brought it back to the states. Everybody wanted it in the states. And very importantly, and you think about this, assuming you have exceptions. If you don't have exceptions, it's a more difficult thing. At the same time, there are people that strongly feel that way, and you have to follow your heart, and you should follow your heart. But that issue is very much subdued. Yeah, thank you. About who?
Attempt?
Yes.
Did the fact that somebody used an AR-15 gun at all change your impression of people's access to that weapon?
No, I didn't. Look, if you take away guns, she wants to take away everyone's gun. If you take away guns, can't do it because people need the guns for protection. Now, entertainment, they want it, hunting, they would, different things, but they need weapons for protection in this country. People live out in the woods and they're not going to have a gun. If you look at it, some countries, I don't want to get them in trouble, but some countries have actually gone the opposite way. They had very strong gun laws, and now they have gone the opposite way, where they allowed people to have guns, where in one case they encouraged people to go out and get guns, and crime is down 29%. And remember this, what is the toughest gun law in the United States? Chicago. On July 4th, 117 people were shot and 17 died. The toughest gun laws in the United States are in the city of Chicago. You know that. They had 117 people shot. Afghanistan does not have that. Afghanistan, by the way, was the lowest point in the history of our country, in my opinion. That was the worst embarrassment to the history of this country. And I say Putin would not have gone into Ukraine if that didn't happen. When he saw the incompetence of Milley and all these guys that are incompetent, when he saw that happen, when they took out the soldiers first, they took out the soldiers first. If you go back and check your records, for 18 months, I had a talk with Abdul. Abdul was the leader of the Taliban, still is. But I had a strong talk with him. For 18 months, not one American soldier was shot at or killed, but not even shot at. 18 months, and then we had the disaster of the lift, where people were falling off airplanes from 3 times the height of the World Trade Center. I mean, terrible. But now our country has to be respected again. Please. Go ahead, please.
Said she might be open to the idea of a weapons embargo against Israel. I wonder if you can comment on that and what that might be for the conflict.
I'd be against it.
And also on the
That
assassination.
Kamala is in favor of not giving Israel weapons? Yeah. That's what I hear. Look, she's been very, very bad to Israel, and she's been very bad to Jewish people. And I say it, if anybody I know is Jewish and they would vote for Kamala over me, they should have their head examined. If you think about it, I gave them Golan Heights. I gave them the capital of Israel, Jerusalem. I even built the embassy. I gave them no Iran deal. The problem is they didn't do anything with it. Iran was broke. We could have made a deal so easily. I would have had a deal done within 1 week after the election with Iran. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. We would have gotten along with Iran. I was looking forward to it. I was fine with Iran. We hit them a couple of times pretty hard, but we would have been fine with Iran. But I terminated that deal. I got them the Abraham Accords. Everyone said that's impossible. I got them the Abraham Accords. She's been very, very bad to Israel, and she's been very bad and disrespectful to Jewish people. And any Jewish person that votes for Kamala and her friend, her new friend, who I don't know if she knew him before, but I don't think he's too good. But anybody that votes for them, if you're Jewish or if you love Israel, you have to have your head examined. Go ahead, please.
The shooter, Matthew Crooks, and I was wondering if the FBI and the Secret Service are doing a decent job.
They have. The FBI came to see me about the shooter. I think they've done a very good job. And I think they did a very good job with respect to this other lunatic that they have in custody. Please.
Around Vice President Harris's relationship with Willie Brown,
Yeah.
former mayor of San Francisco, and how that might have intersected with her career trajectory. So I'm just wondering if you followed that discussion at all and have any thoughts on that.
Well, I know Willie Brown very well. In fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. We thought maybe this is the end. We were in a helicopter going to a certain location together, and there was an emergency landing. This was not a pleasant landing, and Willie was he was a little concerned. So I know him pretty well. I mean, I haven't seen him in years, but he told me terrible things about her. But this is what you're telling me anyway, I guess. But he had a big part in what happened with Kamala. But he I don't know, maybe he's changed his tune, but he was not a fan of hers very much at that point.
Would certify your election victory if you win?
Yeah, I do. Go ahead.
Are you planning to vote on Florida's abortion referendum in November?
On what?
How are you planning to vote on Florida's abortion referendum this November?
Well, I'm going to announce that. I'm going to actually have a press conference on that at some point in the near future, so I don't want to tell you now. But Florida does have a vote coming up on that, and I think probably the vote will go in a little more liberal way than people thought. But I'll be announcing that at the appropriate time. Please.
Coming up, fairly soon and potentially expiring. And I wanted to ask you specifically about the tax code favoring parents versus people who don't have children. There are a number of tax breaks for parents.
Oh, we gave tremendous for childcare and all of that. No, our tax cuts, which are the biggest in history, our tax cuts are coming due, as you know, very soon. And if the Democrats don't renew them or make it impossible to renew because it's pretty close in terms of vote, if they don't renew them, it's the equivalent of having a 4 times tax increase from what you have right now, and it'll destroy the economy. I think they're under tremendous pressure to do it. I've never seen, all my life I grow up and I watch politics, and I used to be on the other side of politics, then I run for office. But in all the years of studying politics, I've never seen people get elected by saying, we're going to give you a tax increase. These guys get up, think of it. We're going to give you no security. We're going to give you a weak military. We're going to give you no walls, no borders, no anything. We're going to, all these things they're doing. I mean, the transgender became such a big thing, but they do all of these things, but they always say, we're going to give you a tax increase. I never heard anybody campaign on a tax increase. A politician has always said, I will cut taxes. I'll give you one example, Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. I am going to leave Social Security. I'm not raising the years. I'm not raising the age. I will be saving Social Security, and I'm going to work it out that there's no tax on Social Security for seniors. I'm also doing no tax on tips, no tax on tips. So waiters, waitresses, caddies, people that drive cars, people that get tips who have been harassed by this government, we're going to have no tax on tips. That's a big thing. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sure. Because other people have done far bigger things than Steve Bannon. Sure. It's politically motivated. I think it's a horrible thing they did. Look, they've weaponized government against me. Look at the Florida case. It was a totally weaponized case. All of these cases, by the way, the New York cases are totally controlled out of the Department of Justice. They sent their top person to the various places. They went to the AG's office, got that one going. Then he went to the DA's office, got that one going, ran through it. No, this is all politics, and it's a disgrace. Never happened in this country. It's very common that it happens, but not in our country. It happens in banana republics and third world countries, and that's what we're becoming. We have no borders. We have bad voting regulations. Anytime you have mail-in ballots, you're going to have problems. France learned that lesson. France had all mail-in voting, and they went back to paper ballots, voter identification, voter ID. They went back to a normal system, one-day voting. They don't want to be around, voting for 64 days. And look, the election, I keep talking about November 5th, but the election really starts on September 6th. That's when it starts because it's early voting. We should have one-day voting. We should have paper ballots. We should have voter ID, and we should have proof of citizenship, please. No, the gentleman in back. For who? You're going to have to talk louder, sir. Elon is a very different kind of a guy. He's a very big believer in the country, but he's very worried about the country. He's very worried about the country. And I don't know if it's good for him politically to have supported me, although I think we have a vast majority of this country does support me. But Elon, more than almost anybody I know, I mean, he loves this country. He loves the concept of the country. But like me, he says this country is in big trouble. It's in tremendous danger. Okay, please.
Economy. What message?
I like this guy.
What message?
I like him.
What message do you have to Americans, sir, who are struggling to pay for everyday life, such as groceries, rent?
The polls have suggested. There are some polls that say we're going to win in a landslide. People are voting with their stomachs, meaning they're going to the grocery store. They're paying 50, 60, 70% more for food than they did just a couple of years ago. Look at what's happened to energy. Look at what's happened not only to their cars, where gasoline's gone from $1.87, $1.87, and we had moments when it was below that, but it's gone from $1.87 to $5, $6, and $7. And they take the strategic national reserves and they take it out, even though it's peanuts compared, it doesn't last long. But they're virtually empty now. We've never had it this low. And he's using that to keep the gasoline prices as low as possible. He's sucked all of the oil out, essentially the gasoline, to keep the price down a little bit, and it's had very little impact. But you know what? We have no strategic national reserves now. He's emptied it. It's almost empty. It's never been this low. And I had it at a good level, and I would have had it more if the Democrats would have approved the deal. You know, I had a deal to buy it at $22 a barrel, and now it's going to be close to 100 pretty soon, my opinion. And the Democrats didn't want to do that, but we bought a lot anyway, and we had it pretty good. And what they've done to the national reserves, the strategic national reserves, is, as you know very well, because you cover it, but what they've done is incredible. They've just, for the sake of getting some votes, for the sake of having gasoline, you know, that's meant for wars. It's meant for like tragedy. It's not meant to keep a gasoline price down so that somebody can vote for Biden, or in this case, Kamala, who, by the way, is worse than Biden. And she's actually not as smart. Okay? She's actually not as smart. That's hard to believe, isn't it? Yeah, please.
Abortion questions.
Okay.
There are other things the federal government could do, not just a ban. Would you direct your FDA, for example, to revoke access to mifepristone? That's one of the things
So
that's been discussed.
you could do things that would supplement, absolutely. And those things are pretty open and humane. But you have to be able to have a vote. And all I want to do is give everybody a vote. And the votes are taking place right now as we speak. Yeah. But there are many things on a humane basis that you can do outside of that. But you also have to give a vote, and the people are going to have to decide. Okay, yes, please. Yeah.
President Biden?
Or
I know
what?
you said you think you're very
No, I
far
think
ahead.
she's actually not as smart as he is.
Well, you said you think you're very far
I don't
ahead
think
in
he's
the
very
polls.
smart either. But
I know you've
I'm not a
seen-
big fan of his brain. But I think that she's actually not as smart as he is.
In the polls, it's becoming a more competitive race since she's taken over for Biden.
Well, she's a woman. She represents certain groups of people. But I will say this. When people find out about her, I think she'll be much less. And I see it right now. I see her going way down to the polls now. Now that people are finding out that she destroyed San Francisco, she destroyed the state of California along with Governor Gavin Newsom. He's been a terrible governor, terrible. But they did it together. And she was early. I mean, she was the first of the prosecutors, really. You know, now you see Philadelphia, you see Los Angeles, you see New York, you see various people that are very bad. But she was the first of the bad prosecutors. She was early.
Who? Will your White House do daily press briefings? Will you commit
Would you repeat that, please?
Your White House.
No, you. Would you repeat her, what she said? You have to speak up. This room is very...
When you're
Louder.
elected, will you commit to your White House doing daily press briefings?
Do you hear her? A daily press briefing? Why would I do that? I would give you all the press briefings you want. Look what I'm doing here. But why would I do a daily press? You'd get tired of me very fast. No, but I will give you total access, and you'll have a lot of press briefings, and you'll have from me. Now, are you talking about from me or from a press secretary? Well, yeah, probably they'll do something. If it's not daily, it's going to be a lot. You'll have more than you want. Yeah, please.
Would you consider granting clemency or a pardon to
I don't think it's appropriate for me to talk about it. I think it's a tragic story. You want to know the truth. And I felt that with Hillary Clinton, too. You know, with Hillary Clinton, I could have done things to her that would have made your head spin. I thought it was a very bad thing. Take the wife of a president of the United States and put her in jail. And then I see the way they treat me. That's the way it goes. But I was very protective of her. Nobody would understand that, but I was. I think my people understand it. They used to say, lock her up, and I'd say, just relax, please. We won the election. I think it would be I think it would have been horrible for our country and we had her between the hammering of all of the files. And don't forget, she got a subpoena from the United States Congress. And then after getting the subpoena, she destroyed everything that she was supposed to get. I thought it was so bad to take her and put her in jail, the wife of a president of the United States. And then when it's my turn, nobody thinks that way. I thought it was a very terrible thing. And she did a lot of very bad things. I'll tell you what, she was pretty evil. But in terms of the country and in terms of unifying the country, bringing it back, to have taken her and to have put her in jail, and I think you know the things as well as I do. There were some pretty bad acts that she did. I think it would have been very bad for our country. And a lot of my people, a lot of the MAGA, as they call them, but the base. And I think the base is 75% of the country, far beyond the Republican Party, because we're a party of common sense. And I'm a person of common sense. I want to have low taxes. I want to have strong borders. I want to have a strong military so that China and Russia, look, they've allowed China and Russia to do the impossible combined. They're natural enemies. They always have been, because China needs more land and Russia has it. They've always been natural enemies. And because of Obama, it started with him, and then Biden, because he didn't know what the hell he was doing, they've now become one force. And then now they're adding Iran to it, and they're adding North Korea to it. Pretty powerful force. This is something that is unthinkable that they allowed to happen.
On this, you're saying today you're not going to change your campaign strategy. You're going to keep going with the issues. Well, what if this so-called honeymoon period doesn't end? And
It's going to
can't break away from
the honeymoon period's going to look. She's got a little period. She's got a convention coming up. It's about policy. It's not about her. I think she's incompetent because I've watched her. She destroyed California. She destroyed San Francisco. Everything she's touched has turned to bad things. I'm not going to use foul language, but everything she's touched has turned bad. She's incompetent. The reason she's not doing what I do, and she's not doing what she should be doing, she won't even do interviews with friendly people because she can't do better than Biden. Now, he had a reason for not doing well, and he was never, 25 years ago, the sharpest or brightest bulb in the ceiling. That I can tell you, okay? He wasn't. But he could do interviews at least. Not lately, he couldn't, perhaps. But she should be doing interviews. She doesn't want to do interviews. And the reason she doesn't is, number one, her policies are so bad. Just to answer your question, I think that it's not going to change because it's really ultimately not about her as much as about her policies. She wants open borders. She wants to defund the police. She wants to defund the police. She wants to take away your guns. Anybody that thinks they're not going to come after your guns, you know, when I was president, I totally protected the guns. And I think it's very important. And I know I take some heat sometimes for it, but you have to have safety. You have to have when the bad guy walks in with a gun, you got to have some way of protecting yourself. And boy, you would see crime go up at levels that you've never seen. When people say on the side of the house, this house has guns, we will use the guns, they say, let's pass. We'll go someplace else. You have to have them. And for 4 years, and as you know, the NRA endorsed me very powerfully every time I ran, every time. My sons are members, and I guess indirectly I'm a member too. But they gave me the strongest of endorsements, and that's against very strong competition. People that felt the same way. No, you have to have that right. Our Second Amendment is a very important right, and it has to be protected. Okay, how about you? Go ahead. Yeah. So there are some of the most brilliant people on Wall Street that are saying that if President Trump doesn't win, you're going to have a depression. I happen to agree. I think that's true. Because I know how bad these people are. They like to say that they did this and that. You saw the $7 trillion that they said it was me for $7 trillion. It wasn't me. It was them. They said that I had inflation. They took over 9% inflation. No, I had 1% inflation. I had actually no inflation because if you look at the categories, we had just about no inflation. But I had a very minor, I actually had a positive inflation. It was a perfect number because you don't want zero. I mean, I'm not going to give you a whole course on economics, but you don't want zero. 1%, 1.4% is great. You want a little bit because you don't want to have deflation. Deflation is in many ways even worse. I had a perfect number right around the 1% number. It was perfect. And to show you, it stayed there for 2 years. And then he did all of the different borrowings that he did. And then he did so many things wrong. Every time he would do it, I'd say, big mistake. And don't forget, they sell hats and they sell stories. Trump was right about everything. I've been right about a lot. Yes, Maggie. Well, we had a commission like other people do, and it's always complicated and it's always controversial. And we had commissions that, and I think of respected people, many of the people on the commission, and they would recommend to me certain pardons for certain people. Some people were treated very harshly. A fantastic woman, as you know, she served 24 years for being on a phone call having to do with drugs. You know who I'm talking about. She was great. And she had another 24 years to go. And it was largely about marijuana, which in many cases is now legalized. Okay, but we had many very highly regarded people on a commission, and they'd recommend, and they'd put a reason why. Some people were, served time, but they served a lot of time for something that today people wouldn't even serve time by. Well, for the most part, I think they did. I mean, they did. They go through. They went through. I had a commission. It was a very important commission to me, and highly respected people. And frankly, they came up with some decisions that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, but I did it. But I let a lot of people out that had no representation. I went to people in jails, in prison that we respected. I said, how many of these people should be let out? We let out large groups of low-income people that were serving like 40 years for something that today you wouldn't even be put in jail for. We had very few people let out because I said, I really don't want to let people out where they had a lot of violence, where they had killing, et cetera, et cetera. And for the most part, we didn't do that. Yeah, please.
More of a say over the Fed on issues like the interest rate? And do you think that you can manage over the Federal Reserve? And do you think that you can manage a soft landing in the economy given with the current leadership in place?
Right. Well, look, the Federal Reserve is a very interesting thing, and it's sort of gotten it wrong a lot. And he's tending to be a little bit late on things. He gets a little bit too early and a little bit too late. And, that's very largely it's a gut feeling. I believe it's really a gut feeling. And I used to have it out with him. I had it out with him a couple of times very strongly. I fought him very hard. And, we get along fine. We get along fine. But I feel that I feel the president should have at least say in there. Yeah, I feel that strongly. I think that in my case, I made a lot of money. I was very successful, and I think I have a better instinct than, in many cases, people that would be on the Federal Reserve or the chairman. Yeah.
Prison for marijuana. Harris supports rescheduling marijuana and also says that no one should go to prison for a marijuana offense. Do you agree with those positions?
Well, as we legalize it, I start to agree a lot more because, you know, it's being illegalized all over the country. Florida has something coming up. I'll be making a statement about that fairly soon. But as we legalize it throughout the country, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's awfully hard to have people all over the jails that are in jail right now for something that's legal. So I think, obviously, there's a lot of sentiment to doing that. Yeah, please.
Kamala Harris's father is Jamaican American, and she went to a historically black college. How is she only recently deciding to be black?
Well, you'll have to ask her that question because she's the one that said it. I didn't say it. So you'll have to ask her. And I very much appreciate that question, but you'll have to ask her. But I've known her for a long time. I actually contributed to her campaign a long time ago because I was a developer. I contributed to lots of campaigns of Democrats, Republicans, and some were liberal and some were conservative. But you'll have to ask her about that. But to me, it doesn't matter. But to her, from her standpoint, I think it's very disrespectful to both, really. Whether it's Indian or black, I think it's very disrespectful to both. To me, it doesn't matter. Please, red dress.
One in the assassination, is your ear fully recovered? Is there a scar? Do you have any hearing damage from
Pretty much recovered, yeah. I'm a fast healer. It's a hell of a shot, but I'm a fast healer. Yeah, pretty much recovered. No, it didn't hit that. I got very lucky. It just hit the lobe, as they call it.
on your ear?
Yeah, a little bit, not much.
Mr. President, I want to ask you about your mass on immigration.
A little bit.
Obviously, the immigration question. You've been running on the idea of mass deportations. You say the biggest in American history is basically what you want. When Senator Vance has been asked about that, he's sort of suggested that really you only need to go after people who've been convicted of crime.
Well, we're starting that. Yeah.
So, okay, so what are you really talking about here? How will you pay for it? And do you think you can?
We are going to start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country because we have no choice. It's not sustainable. And we are going to start with violent criminals, and we're going to start then with criminals. And our local police is going to work with us because they know everything about the people. They know their names. They know everything about them. They know their middle name. They know their numbers. And as you know, the other side is trying. You know, look, for years I wondered, why are they allowing these people to come in at levels like this? It was incredible. And I said two reasons. They're either really stupid, and I don't believe they're stupid, because anybody that can cheat in elections like they cheat is not stupid. Or, in the alternative, they have bad motives or they hate our country. And I used to think they hate our country. But lately I've seen where they're trying to sign these people up to vote. And they have to stop. They cannot let illegal immigrants vote in this upcoming election. All right, one more question. Go ahead, one more. Make it a good one, please.
Regarding Social Security taxes for seniors,
Right.
we talked about a while. Experts say that the policy could increase the deficit by 1.6 trillion. So how would it work in your view?
We have so many ways of making money in this country. We're not going to affect our Social Security. We're not changing it. And I proved that over 4 years. And we're going to do it. It's very unfair to people. They spend their life and they're great citizens and they pay in. We're not going to charge tax to Social Security, the seniors. We're not going to do it. We're not going to charge. And also tax. I say the two things. We're going to have no tax on seniors, Social Security, and we're going to have no tax on tips. Very simple. And we are a country that has so many different ways to make money. We have under our feet more liquid gold, I call it oil and gas, than any country in the world, much more than Saudi Arabia, much more than Russia. We have so many different ways we can make money. We're not going to hurt our seniors with Social Security, and we're not going to charge them tax. Okay?
if sanctuary cities or municipalities are unwilling to cooperate, how do you plan to enforce that and use the federal?
We should not have sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities is a way of protecting criminals, and we should not have sanctuary cities. And if you go to California, and I know it well, I have property out there, great property. If you go to California and you ask the people of California, do they like the idea of sanctuary cities? They don't like it. They're tired of it. They're tired of crime. They're tired of what's happened to our country. Our country's become a crime-ridden mess, and we're going to stop it on November 5th. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, there you go. President Trump addressing the media for more